I was at a brewery this afternoon before I got home. And I texted my wife. I said, like, yeah, I'm just hanging out here. And she goes, how is it? I'm like, I can tell you that the owner is 44 years old.
Welcome to the Pillars of Creation. I'm your host, Mitchel Dane, and today I sit down with a staple of the Edmonton music scene, an icon of Alberta Avenue, the arts and craftsman himself, Mark Elliott Muz. An artist through and through, Mark always finds a way to make something his own, whether it's a new song or through his mixed media art projects. But he doesn't stop there. As a champion of the art community, he joined his brother in bringing the legendary venue, the Artery, back to life, under its current moniker, the Aviary. He is a man of many talents, well-versed and well-traveled, so he doesn't shy away from new perspectives. And just as his name suggests, he's always prepared to follow the winds of inspiration wherever they lead. Okay, welcome, Mark. How you doing?
Excellent. How are you?
I'm doing great, thanks. I've been really looking forward to this interview. You are something of a rarity in that, there are very few people whose talents encapsulate kind of every aspect of a rock and roll show. What I mean by that is, you play guitar, you sing, you can build the stage that you stand on, you own the venue.
Yeah.
If that wasn't enough, you create the art that can go on the posters and the t-shirts that get sold after the show. So you are the rock show, and it's not often that people kind of can touch every aspect of an event like that. So how do you do it? Have you always been a jack of all trades?
It's funny. I had a friend talk to me the other day, young guy, and he talked about how his dad was a jack of all trades guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, I just kind of inherited that from my dad, where I'm just like, meh, I'll try this. Meh, I'm good with my hands. I'll do this, right?
Right.
I feel like some of that is that, but my interests have always been kind of in the right brain arts capacity. So when it comes to like anything arts, I have embraced it for decades now. And so I'll be a part of the music, I'll be a part of the film, I'll be a part of the theater, I'll be a part of whatever it is, which is artistic, because that's my passion, right?
You don't have any qualms about diving feet first into, or head first into any artistic, avenue.
Yeah, I ran into a musician actually this afternoon for lunch, and we were talking actually about that, how sometimes you waste time down a rabbit trail. Like you make mistakes. And I told him how while painting, it was really good for me while doing painting that I could just step aside and not overwork a piece. But when I started using more paper than paint, I never learned, or I haven't learned yet, when to step back. Because I go in with a blueprint, if you will. I go in with a plan and I do it. And some of them are amazing. Others I'm like, oh, I wish I would have stopped myself like 80 hours in and said, But it's like I have no qualms about like jumping into art, music, film, theater, whatever it is. That's my passion. If I can help out or contribute in a way, yeah.
Right. So what was the first love for you? Was it art? Was it music?
Art first.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I've been asked this a number of times about if you were to pick one between like art, music, film, what would you choose? Like if you could make a living doing just one, like if you're going to throw yourself at one instead of doing a bunch of stuff. And I thought about it a lot, but I always came down to art. And part of the reason is that when you're working on film, you have usually dozens of people that you're working with, dozens of people, dozens of visions, dozens of egos that you're working with. When you're playing in a band, you have 3, 4, 5, depending on the size of the band, other people's schedules and other people's ambitions that you have to work with, right? Whether you're like the drummer, the bass player, whatever, like you're a part of something.
Mm-hmm.
When I do art, it's just me. It's just whatever I want to do. I can pour months into a thing that is silly or ridiculous, and it might turn out very good. But like I'm not wasting anyone else's time.
Right.
I don't
Yeah.
have to like convince anyone to get on board of it. I don't have to like get it green lighted by a backer. So I usually say I would prefer to do art than any of the others, simply because I can do it on my own wherever I am.
Yes. Yes.
And
Definitely.
and I have, and which is really nice, is just like take risks and make mistakes, but like they're mine. I'm not wasting
Right.
anyone else's time with it, right?
Yeah. No, I definitely can relate to that. I mean, not in art because as much as I love it, I've never been gifted in the visual arts. But I find the exact same reasoning behind writing because I can sit at the computer and do whatever I want without having to worry about stepping on other people's egos or any other people's timelines or whatever it might be. I can just sit down and write, and it can be it can be years before I present it, but that's okay because it's for me, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But the greater point of the kind of solo art experience is it gives you the freedom to do what you want to do even when it's wrong.
Sure.
But I think about with your artwork, just how much time it must take you for any one of
Oh
your art,
god,
like
yeah.
us. And you said it could take months or it could, however long it is. And I know that
Yeah.
your art is very intricate. And the ones that come to my mind are the ones that are more like the mosaic style, almost like the tiling effect, right? And
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
and that's got to take you forever. And and what led you to that style of artwork? Because I can see some of your artwork is abstract. You said you started with the paintbrush. How did you get onto that mosaic tiling effect?
Well, yeah, that was time. That was time. I The thing I did best was portraiture, right? I loved doing
Okay.
portraits. I loved painting people, and primarily people's faces. Loved it.
Hmm.
Loved it. I was really good at it, and I got a lot out of it too, right? I was talking to a friend the other day about how I loved painting, and I don't do a lot of paint anymore. I do mostly like paper, collage, and other like experimental shit. Whereas back in the day, I used to like just do portraits. And when you're in school and they show you how to do portraits, you're drawing like ovals for heads, and you're drawing a
Right. The
cross, and
grid
you're
system.
yeah, and you're showing where the eyes are going to be, where the nose is going to be, where the mouth is going to be, where the hair is, and like ears, and like it's all laid out for you. Are they looking up? Okay, well, that's gonna, you know. Um, and I remember my now ex-wife, but my wife back in the day was watching me do a portrait, and she goes, "You just started with the eyelashes." Right,
Hmm.
you had a white canvas and you just started like painting like a couple eyelashes, because that was the thing that drew me to the picture
Right.
in the first place.
Hmm.
Was the eyelashes were phenomenal. They were perfect.
Hmm.
And so I drew these like, or painted onto this canvas with like black paint. I painted these flicked eyelashes, and I'm like, as soon as I got it, I'm like, oh, perfect. And then I just built the face around it, right?
Hmm.
And that, I don't I found out later that that's not normal, but I loved the human face. I loved how much expression you could get from
Hmm.
that, right? Like you can put like half an ounce of black paint on a white canvas and express so much. Like
Right.
it's incredible.
It's the picture says 1,000 words effect, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I still look back sometimes. Friends or people who bought portraits of mine like years and years ago, well, every once in a while, like just send me a picture randomly of got this on my wall, right? And it's just like, damn, I love that.
Yeah.
But I learned when I wanted to become a commercial artist, when I wanted to make money at my craft,
Hmm.
because I love doing art, but
Right.
I would love to be
Gotta
able to pay my rent
right. Gotta pay the bills.
by doing it,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, right. I learned that you have to love a person quite a lot in order to pay money to have their face on your wall, right?
Mm.
Like you have to be a real big Joe Strummer fan to
Right.
commission
Yeah.
a Joe Strummer portrait for your wall. And that's saying a lot, right? Because like, like now you have people coming over, you have friends coming over. Maybe you're like dating someone and they come into your place and the first thing they see is a giant face of, oh, you're a big this person fan. Like it tells a lot about a person, right? And so I realized in order to commercialize my talent and my passion, I have to like delve into other areas, right? Like I'm still a great portrait artist, but like if you come to me and say like I want this person, I'm like 100%, I've got you,
Sure.
right? But in the meantime, I'm not just gonna like start painting random people's faces, hoping that someone is gonna pay money to put on their wall, right?
Right.
So I started delving out into other things. I didn't want to do like prairie landscapes. I didn't want to do mountain scenes. I didn't want to do anything like that was like pandering to Albertans.
Right.
You know what I mean? I was asked at one point, like, why don't you do like a field with a bunch of natural gas pumps,
Oh,
like a bunch
sure,
of
like the derricks or whatever. Yeah.
Derricks. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, why don't you do that? I'm like, Jesus, no. Like that's not why I fell in love with this medium. That's not why I do what I do. I do what I do, so I have to find something that could be commercially viable, but also that I get something out of, right?
Of course.
And it was really interesting because the thing that started was I saw a documentary one night at a hotel. Like you're in a hotel. I'd never had TV or cable or anything like that. And so I didn't watch a lot of TV. But, when you're stuck in a hotel by yourself late at night, you just like freaking turn on the TV and you like kind of scroll through what's going on. And there was a documentary on the Brooklyn Bridge and the making of the Brooklyn Bridge. And it was like hours long. And it talked about how the first workers got caisson sickness, which is it's the bends. It's when you get nitrogen poisoning because they were going down in this
right, coming up too quick.
It was wild, and they talked about how the engineer Roebling, who was in charge of it all, he got nitrogen poisoning from going down into the tube down to the base of the river to see how everything was going. He got like sick from it too, and it was just incredible. And the next day, I got home and I just painted a Brooklyn Bridge painting. And I'm a portrait artist who just painted a Brooklyn Bridge painting. And then I painted another one. And then I painted another one. And then another one. I fell in love with this story. Even though it's just bricks and steel, like I fell in love with the story. It felt personal to me.
Right.
And at that point, I realized perhaps I can tell personal stories without having human flesh. Perhaps I can make something inorganic, organic. And so I worked on a bunch of different projects. And then I realized, you're from Edmonton?
Yes.
Edmonton people love Edmonton.
Right.
Yeah, we love Edmonton. Like we defend it, even though we know it's not New York. We know. Right. But like, don't shit talk it to me, right?
Yeah, it's like we're allowed to shit talk it, but not
100%.
you. That's 100%. And that is one of the things I loved about your artwork was the fact that there was, like Edmonton landmarks and it was just like there was something beautifully local about those pieces that you were making, because it was like, what's better than supporting local artwork that supports local venues, or like, what was the Garneau Theater or whatever it might be. And so that was one of the things that drew me to your work as well, because I think the first time I actually met you, I was buying a couple of those prints that you had during the pandemic when you were driving around and delivering them, which was awesome. Yeah. And it's funny that you bring up the Brooklyn Bridge, because I bought one of those as well. So now I'm going to look at that picture with a whole new set of eyes.
Yeah. It was the thing that set me on a course, from portraiture to cityscapes. Because like I said, I didn't want to do mountain scenes. I didn't want to do prairie scenes. I felt like a poser doing that, because that wasn't my thing, right?
Selling out.
And I have lots of... yes, in a way, yes. But like I have lots of friends who are like incredible artists who do incredible mountainscapes and landscapes and prairiescapes. Like incredible.
In the respect that you didn't want to do it. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Selling out myself. Like every subject deserves its master. But yeah, like for me, it just like I I wasn't drawn to it. Like if I was going to do mountainscapes and prairiescapes, I would have been doing it solely to make some cash. Like that would have been like the only reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, it would have been selling out. But like I had to find something that wasn't portraiture that other people could appreciate, other people enjoy, right? And so that was like one of those things is that after doing it was 4 Brooklyn bridges, 3 out of my own, and then a 4th was commissioned. And so I did 4 Brooklyn Bridge paintings as a series, and then I started doing kind of iconic Edmonton landmarks. And at that point, it was still painting. It was all paint on canvas. And after doing that for a while, I was inspired by a lot of my friends who were doing mixed media. Like they were doing a lot of different things with their paint. Some were doing landscape, some were doing portrait, but like people were just starting to do really funky stuff with their art. Instead of just doing paint, they were adding things into the paint. They were adding like stencil stuff. And I was very excited by this because it was at the same time I was moving away from portraiture. Some of my close friends were starting to like experiment in these different mediums. Mm-hmm. So I remember it was at the Artery, the precursor to the Aviary.
Right.
It was at the Artery, and we had some art shows there. And I remember seeing like some of the mixed media stuff. I'm like, I love this, right? And so I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do a painting of the Artery, but I'm going to add in some stuff. And so I couldn't figure out what to add because I didn't want to like copy what other people have been doing. Sure. So I went through a lot of my stuff that I'm a collector by nature. And so I had fragments of paper and old notes and letters and stamps and just shit in a folder that I collected over years and years and years. And so when it came time to like do mixed media, I painted the Artery. Right? I painted the iconic red door. I painted the buildings behind it. I painted it all. And then I started like taking things out of my history, out of like decades of collecting things that you never know if you need it again. Sure. I started like putting them into the paint and just like leaving them as like little Easter eggs in there, right? So my first mixed media piece was a painting of the Artery with maybe like half a dozen little Easter eggs mashed into the paint, partially painted over, just like, yeah, it wasn't so much a part of the actual piece as it was me breaking the barrier of going from paint to something else.
That was the stepping stone.
Yes, absolutely. My next piece was the Artery again. I was commissioned to do the same thing. And they're just like, can you do this again? I'm like, oh yeah, absolutely. I can do this again. And now I felt like emboldened to like add some paper.
Like given permission. Yeah.
Absolutely. Right. Cause like, they're just like, I love what you did with that. Do it for us. Right. And so, so they commissioned me to do that. And I'm like, well, now I can, you don't have carte blanche, but you know, they like what you did with that. So I did the Artery again, but this time now I started using more of the papers that I collected over years and years and years and using it for some of the background buildings, like very subtly putting paper in for like little parts. And they loved it. A lot of people loved it. It was great. I loved it. I was like, damn, where's this going? So I started doing more like iconic buildings, and I would do like a painted sky. I would do a painted skyline. I'd do a painted street. And then I would start like adding papers together to like build the main subject of the piece. And I kept doing that. So it was like 80% paint and maybe 20% mixed media. And I kept doing that. And then when COVID hit, I had this idea in my head where I'm just like, I want to do one that's just all paper. I want to like leave the brushes behind. I've got like hundreds of brushes in my studio. I'm going to leave those behind. Could I do it where every part of it is just paper? And I kept thinking about it, but I'm just like, I don't know how much time that would take. That would take like 80 hours, right? Like to do this, but the way I envision it, that's going to be like 80 hours, right? That's like 2 weeks full time, getting up, doing it, clocking out, or in my situation, that's 3 or 4 weeks of whenever you're in the mood, sit down and work on it. And so I'm just like, when am I going to get to that? And I really wanted to, and then COVID happened. COVID shut everything down. Everything ground to a halt. And I said to myself, if there was ever a time to spend 80 hours on a small piece, you don't know when you'll be like you're making the best of a bad situation. You don't know when you'll have this opportunity.
Absolutely.
Like do that, right? So I remember April 2020, I cleared my schedule and I'm just like, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do a paper Edmonton skyline. And what I did is I did a paper skyline, but I used paint to do the details. I used like Poscas, like the paint markers and paint brushes to do little details. So it was like 98, 99% paper. And then I just added a little bit of paint and pen to it. And I was wrong though, because it was like over 80 hours. It was like a small piece took well over 80 hours. I did my next piece because I'm like, that was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that. And I love the way it turned out. I'm like, all right, next up. And so I went a little bit crazy with the next one. And I kept track of my hours because I'm just like curious, right? Like how long, right? And so it came in just under 130 hours to do this piece, just using like pieces of paper. And again, I added a little bit of paint here and there just to like define certain things.
Sure.
But I was amazed. I'm like the time just flew. I was just like, you're in that creative space. It doesn't feel like any time at all. Like a night just flies by. All of a sudden it's 4 or 5 a.m. and you're just like, whoa. Yeah, absolutely. When you're in the pocket, it's perfect,
the zone.
right?
Totally.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And I'm sure that applies to like other occupations or other like pastimes. But like when you are in the zone, when you are in the pocket and you just have that feeling of confidence, euphoria, it's just, like it doesn't matter how long it takes. Like, just let it roll. And so I did a bunch of other like more ambitious projects. And I got to the point where I started telling myself like, no paint, no pen, only collage.
Pushing yourself.
Yeah. Being like, that really worked well. What about this? What about this? What about this? And so like month after month after month, I would challenge myself with a more complicated piece. And we talked off air before this about how some of them worked out really well.
Yeah.
Others, throwaways.
But you had to go through those.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, like in a way, it's like they're not failures if they led to success in whatever way whatever that means to you as an artist, right?
A learning tool, right? So it would have been like one of those things where like with paint, I could always kind of just as I was going, I could step back. I could try not to overdo a piece, and sometimes less is more. You do something like broad strokes, and instead of like overworking it, you just like leave it as broad strokes, and you're like, that looks better than what I would have done if I'd worked at it for another like 20, 30 hours, right? With the paper pieces, they were so meticulously planned out that it was very late in the game before you realize that this isn't a banger. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
yeah.
You did it for yourself. This wasn't for anyone else. The reason you did this was for yourself. Glad you did it. Maybe you spent like 140 hours on, I did one that was like based off a Roman mosaic I saw. And I'm like, I'm going to do that, but out of paper on this. And I did like 140 hours. And at the end, probably shouldn't have, but I only did it for myself.
Right.
That was it. Right. And so it's a learning process at the same time, right? Like not everyone is yeah, a home run.
Yeah,
So
I mean, it sounds like it almost sounds corny to say that the process is its own reward, but when you legitimately enjoy the process and grow with the
yeah,
process, those
yeah,
130 hours are not wasted because you probably learned 130 things along the way, right? And let alone the fact that it's like you can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs. There comes a point in any art where you do have to decide when you have to move on, and sometimes that's
absolutely.
because you realize that that you're going the wrong direction with this, or
Yeah.
it's just done. Like I always talk about that with any of my musician friends, or the tendency to over edit or over mix or overwrite. You have to learn when to walk away, and it's like you
Hmm.
said, right? And it's like all art is abandoned at some point, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of a beautiful thing and scary as an artist, right?
Yeah. Like sometimes your gut is right. You know what
Yes.
I mean? Like I know you hear stories of musicians or writers that they bang out a masterpiece with very little editing
Yeah.
or
First
revision
try.
and just like yeah, just
Yeah.
bang it out. They correct a couple of things, but I mean that was the masterpiece, right? And
Hmm.
other pieces require a ton of work and revision
Yeah.
and
Oh
finding
yes.
your direction. You know what I mean? Like so it's a matter of knowing when to pull back and
Mm.
just let the creative process flow. If you're getting off track, knowing when to like listen to people, edit yourself,
Yeah.
and maybe correct the direction that you're going in, right?
I always think about the concept of the edit, because how important it is most of the time.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
But some of the time, the edit or the change is informed by what sells,
Of course.
right? I mean, so much of art. We live in a commercial world. You need to pay the bills, and it would be great to just
Yeah,
have freedom to just do art and not have to worry about the gas
yeah,
bill and the water bill, but we do have to worry about it. So
absolutely.
there is that commercial specter that looms above every artist
Yeah. Mhm.
nowadays, and sometimes those edits, those corrections that come in solely because people, whether it's the little voice in the back of your head, or it's a manager, or it's a friend coming in and saying, well, people really love those mountainscapes that you do, and
Yeah,
there is something to be said about well, I have nothing to add to the mountains. Like there's nothing in me as an artist that's going to bring out more
yeah,
from those mountains, right? Like cuz especially when it
yeah,
comes to visual art. Now I'm no
yeah.
visual artist, but
Mhm.
I feel like it's easier to explain this concept when it comes to visual art because the visual artist is not recreating the mountains. Because if it was just about recreating it, well, we have photographs. We have
Of
incredible
course.
digital technology to capture the mountains, right? And sometimes that in and of itself becomes artwork, but that's not what you're doing. You are telling your own story with the mountains
Yeah.
as the subject, right? And or the Brooklyn Bridge, right? There are
Sure.
a
Yep.
million photos
Yep.
of the
Yeah.
Brooklyn Bridge, but when you made the Brooklyn Bridge your series on it, you were telling a story through that image, And some people can take it one way or another, but that's the beauty of art too.
Yeah.
But you could have just gone to Brooklyn and took a photo. And
Of
so, but
course.
you were inspired to make something different, make it your own, give your own spin on it. And that's something to me that's so important when it comes to art in general is just it's like, well, I remember when I was starting out to write songs, and I
Yeah.
remember my mom telling me, she's like, they're all so sad. They're all, like,
Yeah.
why can't you write a happy song? Well, I was going through my
Yeah.
angsty
Yeah.
teen phase, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, all my songs are in the minor key because that's what speaks to me.
Mhm.
It's as simple as that, but it's like, yeah, but happy songs sell. and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's just like, yeah, but that's just I could do that. I could, and it would sell maybe, and or it would be more pleasing to more people potentially.
More palatable for a certain audience.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Barf. But but it's
Yeah.
just the yeah. But it's just it's just like, well, what are we doing here? You know, like
Yeah.
if it's not about what speaks to you, you know, and it's like we all have something to say, we might as well say it. Why are we trying to repeat, you know, what other people have already said potentially?
Yeah.
Which, you
Of
know, because
course.
you
Yeah.
don't
Of
know
course.
what's going to be popular until it is, for the most part, right?
Sure. Yeah. I think visual artists can get writer's block, like writers can.
Mm,
Uh, so I don't know what you would call that, artist block. Like right now, I have the opposite of that. I have planned out my next 12 pieces, right? Like I'm just like,
sure.
I've got material to go, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like at times you can just like you can get to the well and the well is dry. You have no more
Right.
ideas, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the way I got myself out of that is I'm a big reader and I really love Kurt Vonnegut. Is
Oh
like
yeah.
and he's a writer, not a I mean he's an artist, but not a visual artist,
Mm-hmm.
right? Even though he
Sure.
doodles,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
His what is it? 5 story arcs that on the graph that he does is one of the greatest things
Love
ever.
it. Yeah,
Yeah,
his doodles in his novels are
yeah.
maybe as good as his novels at times, right? Like
Right.
he's
Yeah.
just he was a brilliant mind. But
Mm-hmm.
what I would do when I got stuck for inspiration is I would just paint a portrait of Kurt Vonnegut,
Mm.
and it was
Oh,
like a
cool.
palette cleanser, right? It was
Mm.
just like it was bringing a bunch of different things. My loves, I loved painting, I loved portrait, and I loved reading, and I loved his books. And so
Mm-hmm.
when I was stuck, all I would do is I would sit there, blank canvas, and I would paint Kurt Vonnegut, whether it was like a profile or a portrait. Sometimes I would
Mm.
do like a mixed media, or like I did one that was crazy. You know his little sketch of the asshole, like the eight pointed
No, I don't know.
star. I
I
can't
might.
remember
Yeah,
what
now
book
that you
it
say that.
was.
Okay, yeah.
It might have been Slaughterhouse 5, but he talked about how he was talking about the human asshole, and he goes, which is just an eight pointed star. And in the margins of the book, he just did an asterisk, right? Eight pointed
Yeah.
star. And it's ended up being a little bit iconic for him because like now on the spine of his new editions of books, they just have the
Right.
eight pointed
Yeah.
star, his asshole doodle, whatever. And so at one point I was stuck for what to do, and I'm like, I'm going to do a Kurt Vonnegut.
Mm.
What should I do? So I incorporated a bunch of his books into one, and I made a eight pointed star off of an HB pencil eraser. I just cut out the
Okay.
pink parts and left, and I just colored it with a Sharpie. And I would just
Right. Oh,
stamp
that's a cool idea.
4,000 assholes to do a Kurt Vonnegut portrait just with stamps, right? And so it was just like it was something that like jar you out of your writer's block, right? Like if
Yes,
you weren't,
exactly. It's a reset.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
like I don't know what to do, but I will never not enjoy doing a Kurt Vonnegut portrait or Kurt Vonnegut
Mm-hmm.
anything.
Are these all posted to your Instagram page, or because I'd love to see. I'd love to see these.
Not all. I'm super bad at social media. Like there's
Mm.
a lot of art. There's a lot of music. There's a lot of writing I do that is just for me, right? You know, like
Right. Yeah.
I don't know if I'm lazy or self conscious or a combination of the two to like post everything I'm doing, right? Maybe I post the wrong
Right.
stuff, I don't know. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
some of it is
Well, I
like
would love you to post those. I would love to see
yeah,
them.
I yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
I post some stuff, not all stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, it might be a combination of me being old and not
Right. Yeah.
savvy when it comes to
Mm-hmm. I mean,
social media. But
I would consider it to be the worst part of
yeah,
today's artist's life, in my opinion.
yeah,
So I
the
totally
mark,
understand because I'm constantly kicking myself to go, oh, I got to upload this or I got to do that,
yeah,
you know. And it's like, and I hate that stuff, but I know that it's
yeah,
like it's one of those things where it's like well, in today's day and age, that's like what you have to do if you wanted
it's
to
a part of it. Yeah,
reach people or
absolutely.
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's one of those things where I'm like my ex wife said that it's just that you need an agent
Sure.
is what you need.
Yeah.
You need someone who like sells your shit, posts your shit, takes care of all the stuff that is like kind of soul draining
Yeah. That's
for
the
you.
dream.
Yeah, because like when it comes to like we were talking about this before. I was thinking about bringing it up is just having a benefactor, right? Like
Right.
you know when the Renaissance hit in Italy, you would have incredible masters,
Mm-hmm.
But like the reason they were incredible masters is because somebody saw something in them and
Yes.
they said, "Don't worry about your bills for the next 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
I've
Yeah.
got you." So
Mm-hmm.
you're talking about like I know so many creative people that like I couldn't even imagine what they could do if they never had to worry about rent again.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that because I just read that Harper Lee, who wrote To Kill a Mockingbird,
Yeah.
on her like 33rd birthday, like I think 4 or 5 of her friends got together and gave her a year's salary and to write her first book, and it was To Kill a Mockingbird. And I just think about like that makes me emotional to think about because it was such a
Right?
beautiful gesture, but it was also the faith that she was good and that their friends saw something. Is just like the patrons of the arts back in
Yeah.
ancient times. It is something that comes to my mind a lot when I think about like just the value of art and in all its
Yeah.
manifestations, like whether it be music or visual art or writing or whatever it
Yeah.
might be, and just the consistent devaluing of it, while
Yeah.
simultaneously there's more desire and more hunger for it than ever before. And
Mm-hmm.
that's by the nature of the fact, it's instant gratification culture. We always want more because you can just slide to the next video or the next
Yeah,
photo or whatever it
absolutely.
might be.
But I also heard I heard something interesting recently where they talked about they're actually disparaging the prairies in Canada when they
Mm,
said this. I shouldn't say disparaging. They're talking about how people do disparage the prairies, but they were saying how culture is relative, right?
right.
Like you say, this city has incredible culture, this place has incredible culture, but it's all
Mm,
relative. Every place has its own culture. Yeah, Melville, Saskatchewan
mm-hmm.
has its own culture, right?
Sure.
Whether it's something that's going to be like invited to like the Met Gala or not,
Right.
that's for other people to decide, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But like we have culture, we have art, we have music,
Mm,
we have
mm-hmm.
incredibly talented musicians. I always say like Winnipeg and Edmonton, like pound for pound, produce the best fucking art and music anywhere in the world, right? And I don't know if
Right.
it's from our like cold winters and our isolated
Mm-hmm.
geography, but like
Yeah.
like it's incredible, right? It's just that it gets overshadowed by oil and gas culture, conservatism, all these other things,
Sure.
right? And so you
Yeah.
talk about Edmonton, like you live in Edmonton, there are incredible musicians, artists, poets,
Oh, yeah.
writers, like whatever art,
Yeah. They're everywhere.
media.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
It's one of the reasons I started this podcast is because I feel like I'm surrounded by such a incredible people who and not only
yeah,
do I love talking about this stuff, but it's more just it's like my way of showing appreciation for the artists around me
and,
and for the people that I admire,
and
because I
exposure. Yeah,
do and it's exactly, and it's one of those things where
yeah,
it's like you may sit in your studio and paint
yeah,
1,000 portraits of Vonnegut and it may never be
yeah.
seen, and that's fine,
Yeah.
but I know that those are incredible,
Cheers.
and because I really do admire you as an artist, but part of it is like I want people to see it. Not only
Mm,
just do I want to see it, it's selfish too because I want to see it. But there's just that aspect of hometown prophet syndrome. It's the idea that we can't appreciate our local artists because they're from here.
yep, because we know them. Because
Yeah, because we know them,
yeah,
because they can't be true artists because I
we know
know
them.
I know that where
Yeah,
Mark works, or and so
yeah,
therefore he's not a
exactly.
great artist, and I think that's crap.
I
And to
agree.
me, it's like, well, this podcast is putting my money where my mouth is. I believe that
Yeah,
everyone I've talked to on this podcast so far are great, and they have something to offer anyone who's willing to listen or to look, right, and to see and
yeah,
to engage in these valid artists, and they invest a little in their local artists and their local scene. There is a call to action in a way of just like, hey, like there's some great artists around you, support them, even if it's just a follow or a like there that
yeah. Of
helps,
course.
like that is very important.
Absolutely. It's one of those things where like you're like Pablo Picasso, who everybody just says is an artistic legend. Whether you like his art or not, you
Sure.
know the name. Like nobody
Of
doesn't
course.
know the name of Picasso, right? Everybody knows Picasso.
Mm-hmm.
He was a bit of a degenerate. He's got a
It's
history through like
oh yeah.
France and Spain of being a dude who would show up to bars and parties and be a bit of a degenerate, and
Yeah.
you're like, okay, Andy Warhol. Everybody knows
Oh
Andy
yeah.
Warhol's name, right?
Sure.
He was
Sure.
in the cool scene in New York, and like, yeah, he did some cool stuff, absolutely. But he was also like one of us.
Weird.
He was
Yeah.
also
Yeah.
the guy who,
Just a regular person.
probably
Yeah.
got drunk at a party and was a bit of a piece of shit or whatever, right? I
Mm-hmm.
know pals who have like hung out with some of the coolest bands in the world, like the most popular bands in the world, and they're just regular people.
Yeah.
That's what they are, right?
Yeah. Easy. It's easy to forget
I
that.
think we hold these names to such a crazy standard
Mm.
that we're just like, nobody from Edmonton could ever be Picasso, Warhol, or
Yeah.
Julian Casablancas,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Nobody, because we know
Mm-hmm.
them, because we've gotten drunk with them at a party, we've hung out with them. They're just John. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're nothing special. Like, they're talented, but like
Mm-hmm.
nothing. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's bullshit.
Yeah.
Like Andy
Exactly.
Warhol, Pablo Picasso, Julian Casablancas all came from a scene where they were good at what they did,
Mm-hmm.
but were supported and became
Oh
bigger
yeah.
than whatever. I'm like, I want to see Edmonton's Picasso. I want to see
Right.
Edmonton's, Andy Warhol. I want to see Edmonton's,
Mm-hmm.
Elvis,
Sure.
Julian Casablancas, whoever it
Yeah.
is, because like we have so many talented people. All it takes
Mm-hmm.
is us rallying around them and supporting them, and being
Yeah.
like, yes, what you're doing is cool. What you're doing
Mm-hmm.
is good. I love this.
Yeah.
I support this. Right? It's one of those things where
Oh
like
yeah.
if you and I and 10 other people could give Harper Lee a year's salary to work on their
Yeah.
project,
Mm-hmm.
what could we get out of Edmonton's art and music scene?
Yeah. And the thing is that it's what makes that story so powerful is that they didn't know she was going to write To Kill a Mockingbird, but they
No,
they they
of course,
believed that she
they
was
had belief.
talented. But I'm sure that if you went to people and were able to show them a glimpse of the future and say
Yeah,
the book that this person will write will be To Kill a Mockingbird, or it will
yeah,
be whatever cubist painting that Picasso made or whatever,
yeah.
people would invest because they'd see the
Of
value,
course,
right?
of
But
course.
that's the thing, is it's like you can't know if you don't support your scene, and sometimes the support is
Absolutely.
just simply acknowledging it or encouraging it with the like or the
Yeah,
follow or the comment.
yeah,
I mean, these are little things, but these all add up to encouraging that person forward, the artist,
yeah.
because it is, in a lot of ways, it is a lonely experience,
I
you
was
know?
just about to say about how lonely it can be, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, especially in like the internet age, where like
Oh, yeah.
that's what you do. Like you have to like social media in order to get your art out there. It can be a lonely experience, and so sometimes just the simplest comment just like
Mm-hmm.
pushes you to the next day. You know what I mean?
Oh,
And
yeah.
it
Yeah.
takes nothing, and it's the smallest gesture, but
Yeah.
like for someone who's putting their souls out there, like it's a lot. Like
Yeah.
I've talked to pals about this, how like art shows, because I do an art show every year or two,
Mm-hmm.
right? An exhibition, and I get asked like how it is, and I'm just like it's fucking hard
Yeah.
because it feels like you're just bearing your soul.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're saying, this is what I've done for the last 24 months. Judge it.
Yeah.
I put
Yeah.
my six
Mm-hmm.
pieces on the wall. This is my last 24 months.
Yeah. Be gentle.
How was
Yeah.
2024,
Yeah.
2025? Right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
guys
Here is a
and people
year
like,
of my life. Yeah. Here is a
yes,
year of my
exactly.
life.
And
Yeah.
people will walk around with a wine, be like, meh, and they like move on, and you're just like, oh my
Yeah.
god, I bared my
Oh, yeah.
soul.
Totally.
And that's the reaction, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
like it can be a lonely experience, especially in the social media age. So sometimes like just a supportive comment or like is something that takes the artist who is really putting themselves out there. They're really taking
Mm-hmm.
a risk by like presenting what they do, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I've got friends who are narcissists who they could do the worst shit and put it out there and they'd be proud of it. But like the artists I know, like the true artists I know, who are like slaving away at this and they put it out there,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's ignored. And so
Right.
sometimes just like the simplest, just being like, comment just like great job, love the new sound, or love
Right.
the new piece, or whatever.
Yeah.
Like great job, you're nailing it. That little thing that takes you like 2.5 seconds can keep the person rolling,
Going.
right?
Yeah.
Because I don't feel like artists, whether writers, visual artists, musicians, whatever your art form, film, screenwriters, whatever, I don't feel like it should be a part of our repertoire to be social media experts.
Yes.
Like that's not,
Agree.
you know what I mean? Like if you're a creative, that doesn't mean you're great at marketing,
Yeah, exactly.
right?
Well, it's like, where would the Beatles be without I can't remember his name, the manager, right?
Yeah.
Like, he took them from the
Yep.
cavern and was able to market them in a way that blew them up across the planet, right? But left to their own devices, they may
Absolutely.
have stayed in the cavern, right? And that's something
Absolutely.
that is missing
Yeah.
today, in a way, at least in the sense of we're all expected to be our own, marketing genius, and that's just not really
Who was
fair.
who was the woman in the 1920s in Paris that gave a home to? She was a writer as well, but like give a home to like Hemingway and Picasso,
Oh,
Fitzgerald, Stein, Gertrude Stein, where she had a home in Paris, and she's like, "Oh, I'm going to introduce this American, Ernest Hemingway. He's like 24 years old. He's working on some short stories. I'm going to introduce him to this Spanish artist Picasso who's working on some like weird ass shit." And like just like connecting people and that and I would love, like, I don't think my art will ever take me anywhere, but I would love to be a Gertrude Stein, where if I could connect artists to other
sure.
artists, if I
Yeah.
could like be a patron of the arts. I love doing art. I love making music. I love doing what I do. But even better maybe is if I could just like have a place where I could give an opportunity to people. You know what I mean? Like just
Right.
like provide a platform where like they could like show their art and move on to like the next level. Like that is incredible.
Well, actually, it's interesting that you say that, because in a way, you more than most people do. Because I know that you and your brother Philip own and operate the Aviary, and
Yep.
so that, I mean, it's a venue for hire and for shows, and there's that component to it, but
Yeah.
it is still a stage, and it's like every artist needs a stage, and that is just
Mhm.
a basic reality. And
Yep.
with the Aviary, you're constantly putting on shows. So I'm sure you have a different perspective on what it takes to cultivate the scene, and outside of just the likes or the thumbs up. And as much as you have to support the artists, like that's why supporting these venues is just as important, because the artist needs the stage. It's like, it's like any ecosystem, it takes all the moving parts working together.
Mhm.
So the artists, the audience, and the venues, like you take any one of those and it all falls apart, right? And so it's, with the Aviary, which has always been one of my favorite venues, to whether to play at or to go to shows. And I'm not just saying that because you're not, because you're so heavily involved in it. I just have
I know.
always loved that venue. I mean, and like you said, even before, when it was the Artery, it's like you can appreciate these local venues because they are the opportunity for us to get our art to the masses, that is more
Mhm.
personal and more tangible than the Instagram post that goes out to nobody.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
that's the thing, is it's like that the Instagram is not the stage. The stage is the stage. And
Yes,
that's
exactly.
important distinction, I
Absolutely.
think. You know.
That's a brilliant way of saying it. But yeah, I put on my first show in Edmonton in 1996.
Wow.
So that's almost 30 years, right? Like it's
Mm.
29 years ago, right? I put on my first show in Edmonton, but the reason was because I was underage and I
Right.
was in the punk scene, playing a punk band. And if I want to see like a cool punk band, where can I see them? They're all playing
Mm-hmm.
bars, and there was
Yep.
no all ages space in Edmonton,
Sure.
right? So you have to like be 18 or you can't see like cool music, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was a problem for me. So I started just like renting halls
Okay.
and
Yeah.
just like booking the bands I wanted to see. Like in high school, I started working in construction. And so you get a paycheck, right?
Mm-hmm.
My first paycheck was $400, and I went and bought a bunch of CDs, right, with
Right.
that. My next paycheck was like $600. I'm like, oh shit, what am I gonna do with this? I'm like, put on a show.
Mm-hmm.
And so you rent a hall with that, and you tell bands you can have everything at the door. I don't give a shit. I'm just here to provide music.
Yeah.
And sometimes you'd give some money to touring bands. Sometimes you wouldn't give a lot. Like it kind of sucks. Like I always hated like not being able to give like a bunch of money to touring bands and stuff like. But the reason we started putting on shows is that we were like 16 years old, and there are bands from like Philadelphia and New York and Toronto and Vancouver that we want to see, but they're going to play bars. And so we give them a platform, and then I would allow all these 14 to 17-year-olds to see a band that they couldn't see otherwise, right?
Mm-hmm.
And did that for years and years and years. And then when my brother obtained the Artery, back like 15, 20 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
it was like, now we actually have a place. Instead of having to like rent a space and like
Yeah.
provide the equipment, like make an event out of it, you just have a place. It's a place. It's already set up. We're all ages. Do your thing, right? Like it simplified it so much,
Totally.
right? And that was like the whole thing for me is that like I have a ton of friends in their like 30s, 40s, 50s who are incredible musicians. They do incredible art. They do whatever. But I'm like, our scene doesn't last without like those like 16-year-old kids going to shows, being inspired. And so like seeing like the turnover, like the next generation coming up after every 10 years, it's just it's such a wonderful feeling. It's such a wonderful thing. And so in a small way, I feel like a bit of a patron of the arts, where at least I can provide a space where simplify it for like these young people to like get into it and do their own thing, right?
Well, I would consider you one, and because of how important those stages are, and it's not just a quick buck that's exploiting bands or something like that.
Yeah. The art could be secondary in certain spaces, but the aviary is art music first, right? Because like we are in a neighborhood that is not like walk up crowd. We're not on Jasper Avenue. We're not on White Avenue. The only reason you come here is because we have art and music provided for you. Like that is the sole purpose. That is the sole reason why it exists, right? And that's been the mantra like from day one, right?
Well, I definitely appreciate where you're coming from when you say like how important it is to give access to the younger audience, because I don't know about you, but there was never a time in my life that I was more consumed with my love of music and art than in my teens. Because at that point in my life, that was my life. I didn't have to work, I didn't care about school. I didn't have bills to pay. I had identity. Art. Yes.
Yeah. When you're 15, that is your identity. Like if you're 15 years old in 2006, My Chemical Romance is your life.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like it's like, and there are people who are still living off of that, right? Like just like that was my identity, right?
Well, and it's kind of like, it's funny because like it's like rock and roll. I think it was it the 50s, right? And they call the rock and roll era in the 50s and the 60s the birth of the teenager, right? Because it was like it was when it was the first opportunity, after the war that you had freedom of the kids had freedom to do what they wanted to do.
Yep.
Right? And the explosion of music at that time for young kids was remarkable. To this day, maybe never seen anything like it. But that passion in the youth is still there. And that's why it's like the all ages shows, some of the best shows.
I was at a brewery this afternoon before I got home. And I texted my wife. I said, like, yeah, I'm just hanging out here. And she goes, how is it? I'm like, I can tell you that the owner is 44 years old. She's like, how's that? I'm like, they played the Fratellis, the Strokes, and I named like 6 bands in a row. I'm like, because when they were like 15, 16, 17 years old, this was like music that identified you as a person.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like getting like a
brand.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting the Yeah's haircut, like you knew you were like 15 to 17 at that time. And so like now you own a brewery. Yeah, you're 44 right now. That's how old the owner of this bar is. Because I can tell by their playlist You know what I
The
mean?
math
Like, it's
checks
just
out.
like,
Yeah.
because when you're like 15 to like 19, music is your identity. It's your life. It's what
Mm.
you talk to your
Mm-hmm.
friends about. It's what you listen to before you go to bed. It's like, it's everything, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so like when I was like I was that age in the 90s, and it was like, yeah, I had my punk bands that are like nobody would know who those
Mm-hmm.
ones are. They're like obscure punk bands, cool. But
Right.
like
Yeah.
also like
Yeah.
the grunge bands I grew up on,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you're like, man, that was something I had with my friends. That was something that like made me who I was, and I moved on like through the years, right?
Yeah.
And when I was like 15, 16, 17 years old, and I couldn't see these cool bands, these bands that I looked up to, these bands that I loved their music live, because they were
Yeah.
playing in Edmonton, but I was 17 or 16 or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's not right. And so we would just
Totally.
book those bands, give them a guarantee,
Mm-hmm.
rent the hall. If you lose
Totally.
a few $100, like, well, that was like a couple of days work on a construction site. You know what I
Sure.
mean? It
Sure.
was about like exposing like your peers, your age group, the people your age to this very cool music, these very cool people from like Portland and, like I said, Philadelphia, Toronto, wherever,
Sure. Sure.
to this.
Mm-hmm.
That's so important. Maybe it's less important now because like we have like internet connections where we can see whoever play at whatever venue, whatever.
Sure.
But like back then, like that was everything.
Yeah, we can go on YouTube, or we can go and connect to a live stream from a band, and anyone can do that, all ages, of course.
Of course,
But
yeah.
as you know, it's not the same when you're young and you go to your first rock show. The
Mm-hmm.
energy and the crowd and the fun of it, that can't be
Yeah.
captured with a camera. It just can't.
Yep.
The energy of a live performance is
It
is
hits
unlike
different.
anything else, and it might be
Absolutely.
the same song, it might be the same person playing it, but you sit in the crowd and you feel that, and it's just, man, it's the best thing ever. And it's so gratifying
Yeah.
to see, the hooks get into the next generation, because you're like, I love
Yeah.
that, I love that, you love that,
Yeah.
and that will be the best fan that they'll ever have, like
Yeah.
someone captured in that generation, because like you said, it never leaves. That's a tattoo. That's a
No.
brand on your chest. Like that will
100%.
never go away. And to kind of transition, or to segue, because you had mentioned, your love of punk music and grunge in the 90s, and
Yeah.
just that's when it got its hooks into you then. And your most recent band endeavor is Call Off the Gods, which is a
Yes.
grunge, garage punk kind of band.
Yeah.
And at this moment, you have only released the one single, as far as I know, which is Hanging Tree.
Can you see just what you're doing to me? Meet me down at the hanging tree, at the hanging tree. See what you've done to me. Can you see just what I'm going through? Meet me down at the reflecting pool, the reflecting pool.
Yes, and I don't think that's like emblematic of
Mm-hmm.
who we are as a band. I had a couple of friends say that's a little more like surfy,
Right.
whatever. If you go on Spotify and listen to Tree, it's maybe not the best like sample of what we do, but yeah,
Mm-hmm.
grunge punk. At
It's
some point I had to just embrace my roots, and that's just who I am. That's
totally.
who I was. That's like as a 15-year-old, 16-year-old, like when you
Mm-hmm.
fall in love with music and that's the music you love forever.
Yeah.
That's where I was, right?
But
Like
it's truthful to be playing what you love, right? It's just like, if
way more comfortable being honest. Yeah, it's
yeah,
way more
exactly.
comfortable being honest.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, and it's
Yeah.
authenticity is so important, right? And so it's like, I
It
can
shows.
tell. Yeah, it shows, and I can tell when I'm watching a band whether they love their music or not. And it's not a stuck up, conceited point of view. It's just they
No, I
love
totally
it.
get that.
They love what they're doing, and it's an energy that emanates from the stage, and the crowd picks up on that.
Yeah.
And so when, like with Call Off the Gods, like there are some videos of you playing online. I could tell you guys
Yeah.
are loving what you do,
Oh yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
that is the most important thing.
Yeah. That's the most genuine having fun playing music I've felt in my life.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
exactly.
Like I
Yeah.
just like yeah, it's I believe in the songs, I believe in the style. And honestly, like I get asked by some people because I used to have like incredible anxiety going on stage, like incredible
Mm.
stage fright. And they're like, where did that go? Where did that disappear? I'm like, oh, when I stopped giving a shit. Like
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
I'm playing music,
Funny how that
it's
works.
for me. It's for
Yeah.
me.
Hmm.
Like I'm playing for me, right?
Oh,
And yeah,
totally.
if you give me a platform, amazing, right? But yeah, so maybe some of the videos where you come to a live show, what you'll see is just us enjoying music that we wrote for us. If you
Hmm.
like it too, great. But like it's just it's just simply a passion project. It's not to go anywhere or do anything with it. It's just
Hmm.
a passion project, right?
Yeah. So is there more recorded music to come on the horizon for you guys? Maybe an EP or a
We
full length album?
we've got a couple in the can, and we have to talk in June about like what we're going to do next.
So it's funny to segue. You talk about some of your construction background. I mean, obviously
Mhm.
you are gifted with your hands, whether it's playing riffs or it's making art. But another aspect of your craftsmanship is you have a carpentry background, and one of the things that comes to my mind is I know that you and your brother you were making the top shelf, never wiggle picnic tables in Edmonton,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
these are great picnic tables. I think some of them are even kicking around my work. I wonder, are
yeah,
you still doing
absolutely.
that with your brother? Are you still? I know you do
You
outdoor
know,
decks as well, or
yeah,
you
yeah, I
did.
do. I see the carpentry contract piece. We delivered a picnic table a couple weeks ago. Whether we do more, that remains to be seen. I had to drop off my truck for maintenance at my mechanic. He's on
Hmm.
99th Street. And
Okay.
so I was like, well, I have to wait for my truck, so I'm going to go have a beer. So I was looking at on my phone. I'm like, all right, which brewery should I go to? Who's open? Right? It's like noon.
Hmm.
I look. I'm like, oh god, we've supplied picnic tables to Sea Change, Long Roof, Monolith, Bent Stick. I looked at like the whole Happy Beer Street. I'm like, I think
Yeah.
they all have our picnic tables, right?
Right. Yeah. I
Yeah. So
wondered
I got
about
to have
that.
a pint. Yeah, I got to have a pint at lunch on one of the picnic tables I built. So that was nice. Yeah.
Beautiful. So anyone who's listening to this podcast or watching it on YouTube, where can they contact you about getting one of these picnic tables? Is there a website or is there a Instagram page or one of those
No
things?
website. If you go to my Instagram, it's just Mark Elliott Muz. You can see it on the screen there,
Hmm.
Mark Elliott Muz. If you go on Instagram or Facebook, you can find me. That's fine.
Okay.
I do everything like through pals and
Sure. Like, yeah.
referrals and stuff. And so,
Well, consider this a referral.
100% cheers.
Which that does bring me to my next question, which is, we're coming
Yeah.
to the end of the podcast here. And, what is something that's on the horizon for you, whether it be art or music or something at the Aviary? What is something that's exciting to you coming up right away?
There's lots of good shows coming up at the Aviary. Preoccupations is playing soon.
Hmm.
One of my favorite bands, like post punk from Calgary. Love them. I think it's June 4th. I believe they're playing at the Aviary. Art wise, I have so many ideas in the bank. Like it's gonna be a wild next 24 months. Like I've
Hmm.
got a lot going on.
Beautiful.
Music wise, I have songs in the bank,
Hmm.
and so we will see how Call of the Gods does because of our schedules. Whether those songs are Call of the Gods songs or something else.
Cool. And that's going to be probably in one way or another advertised at least on the Aviary if you're playing at the Aviary or through
For
your
sure.
Instagram page, which
For
Aviary
sure.
has an Instagram page, which
Yep.
is
Instagram is aviary.edmonton or aviary period Edmonton.
perfect.
And then the email is .net.
You also have a page
Yeah.
for Call Off the Gods, which is simply Call Off the Gods for
Call of
Instagram.
the Gods.
Perfect. Well, I really appreciate you coming on and talking with me tonight. Is something that
Of
I was
course.
really looking forward to. Because I knew you had so many things going on, and it's really interesting perspective to get from you. And if you follow us on our Instagram page, which is pillarpod, or you can watch the interview itself, YouTube /@pillarpod. We appreciate your support here, and that gives you an opportunity to see some of the art, because during the interview I will be showcasing some of the work that Mark is talking about that I can convince him to let me show. But beyond that, I appreciate everyone who's listened this far. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe, because it really helps motivate, and it's like we said, there's just to know that there's someone out there that appreciates the work, or at the very least wants to see where this will go. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.